Welcome back to Neo Insight. The journey home continues. Michael Thomas is now an integrated warrior, having learned the physics of love. Now he faces the House of White, the House of Discernment. This house holds the most agonizing test of the entire journey. What is the ultimate sacrifice a spiritual master must make? The Angel White presents Michael with the promise of perfect happiness, Anolee, the love of his life and the partner he has always dreamed of. The greatest earthly joy is suddenly within reach, requiring only one choice. In this emotional episode, Michael must decide between his personal, profound happiness with his soul partner and his commitment to the sacred journey home. Watch now to witness the most heart-wrenching moment of the entire parable and discover the true meaning of divine discernment. The sixth house. The trek to the next house went almost without incident. Mike was more aware than ever that he was being followed. Instead of fear, however, he felt only caution. He could actually feel the dark energy of IT, following not too far behind. He hadn't been able to sense the creature's energy before. It was almost as though Michael Thomas had been given a new gift of second sight, perhaps a sixth sense. He absolutely could tell that this energy existed. What did this all mean? What or who was this thing? What did it want? Why didn't it just show itself? Why just follow him all the time? Mike remembered the storm and how the dark greenish figure had come out of hiding and attacked him while he was vulnerable, seemingly only to disappear when lightning struck. Perhaps it was afraid of Michael? In that case, Mike had nothing to worry about, and he would simply keep the phantom at bay throughout the remainder of his journey to the last two houses. Mike intuitively knew, however, that there would probably be a time of reckoning with the sinister thing that shadowed him from house to house. Red had intimated as much, and Mike's new intuitive sense was telling him the same thing. Be careful, Mike, were the words he heard over and over regarding the subject. It was his mind talking, or was it? He was beginning to realize that the voices of the angels were somehow melding into his own, giving him advice about his journey. It was all so new. As he continued, twice he caught a glimpse of the thing. When he looked back, at least it was behind him. Mike considered the fact that if it was smart, it could get ahead of him in his journey from the sixth to the seventh house. Better be watchful for that. An intuitive voice spoke clearly in his mind. Mike took out his map to see if the shadowy phantom had any kind of energy that would appear. The map was normal, however, showing all things around the red. You are here. For a couple of 100 yards. Mike looked back to where he had seen movement and realized that the thing was lurking just out of range of the map. He wondered if it knew that it might show up on the map and therefore kept itself far enough away. He would have to keep that firmly in mind. Somehow, he felt it was valuable information. Mike found the White House fairly soon in the afternoon. It was small and unassuming, a cottage just like the others. He approached it and looked for the sign so that he could have a preview of the lessons to be learned there. His curiosity didn't disappoint him, for indeed, the sign was there. It read House of Love. Mike was instantly curious. What could this be about? He had felt loved in each house. He had been through the house of relationships, yet here was an entire house dedicated to love. Mike turned from the path and walked up to the door. There was no angel to greet him. He looked for the place to put his shoes, and it was there, waiting for him. Mike wondered if he should wait for the white angel, but decided not to. He removed his shoes, placed them in the appropriate area, opened the door, and went inside. He was overcome by the smell of flowers. He remembered this feeling. He was standing in a hallway that led to a vast area of indistinct whiteness. He slowly made his way down the hall until he was standing in a great, open void of white. He remembered this place. This was where he'd experienced his original vision. Suddenly, the great white angel who had been in the vision stood before him. Greetings, Michael Thomas of pure intent. We meet again. The angel smiled a phenomenal smile, and what a voice. Mike was extremely pleased to see this wonderful entity. The gossamer quality of his garments again astonished Mike. The angel seemed to blend into the house. He intuitively recognized that white, as he would call this, angel was different from the rest. He floated. The others walked. White had a countenance about him that somehow gave him a greater badge of divinity, if such a thing was possible. The other angels on this journey had become his friends, his family. This one was like a priest. He glowed. Mike felt that White shouldn't be touched, and that he carried a great energy with him. Mike's new intuitive powers were serving him well. "You have a face this time." Michael winked at White. He remembered that everything about the angel had been indistinct the last time they had met. "Indeed, I do. And it is because you have made it this far that you are able to see it. You have done very well, Michael. Your vibration is higher than that of any human who has traveled this land. Already there are colors in your name that announce this. Colors that will remain forever regardless of your success here, whether you go forward to the next house or not." There it was again. Was it a warning that he wasn't going to make it? Was it doubt? Red had given him the same feeling, that perhaps he might fail in the last moments of the sacred journey. What was coming that would be so tough? "It is this house that will test your resolve to continue," said White, again reading Mike's energy. "Not everything is as it seems. Use this comment as your guide, and you will fare well in what is to come." Mike remembered that he was standing before the angel who had originally spoken those words, and how true they had been. It was an admonishment not to make assumptions. It was a warning to heed, and it would somehow help him. Mike wanted to know more about White. "White, you are different." "Yes, Michael, I am. This is the house of love. It is next to the purest house you will ever enter. It isn't a house of lessons as the ones before. It is the source house. It's the center. But it's number 6 of 7 in a row of houses." Mike exclaimed. "Again, not everything is as it seems." The angel smiled. "Believe me, it's the center. The order of the houses is only for your lesson, Michael. The layout you see only represents a human attribute." Mike was immediately curious to know more about the house. What will take place here? Revelation. The angel floated closer to Mike. What a face he had. If love had a face, this was it. Beautiful, astounding, and peaceful. White continued with his answers. A journey into choice. A re-examination of all that is. Another vibrational shift, if you want it. "Who are you, really?" Michael inquired of White. "You're not just the white angel in the 6th house. I know that. I am known by all, Michael Thomas. And that I am known by all, therefore I exist." This was the identical answer that White had given the first time Mike had asked the question. It made no sense to him. "I don't fully understand your answer, White, but undoubtedly someday I will. Of all the angels I have met so far, you are indeed the grandest." Mike was speaking truthfully, for he was beginning to understand that what stood before him now was an entity of great spiritual importance and potent energy. "That may be so, Michael Thomas, but there's one coming who is grander than us all." White was patient while Mike pondered the statement. Then White turned and floated ahead, beckoning for Mike to follow. White led Mike through a nondescript and almost indistinguishable maze of pseudo-hallways. Mike couldn't see details in this place. They rooms and halls, if that's what they were, could have been any shape. "What is wrong with my vision, White? Everything blends in with everything else." "Much of what you perceive is in higher dimensions, Michael Thomas, and your mind is not able to make sense of it at the moment. That is why I did not meet you at the door. I cannot easily go outside of this place, for physics there would not accept my dimension." Mike knew he was in an area of knowledge he didn't begin to comprehend, and he did not pursue it. White led Mike to a familiar-looking door, one Mike could actually see distinctly, and then he spoke. "Your quarters and dining area are in your dimension. You must enter alone. I will be here to greet you in the morning after your first meal." White was very gracious. He smiled broadly at Mike and made him feel very good indeed. There was something about his voice that made Mike wish to hear him speak over and over. White's voice was beautiful. Mike remembered how he had reacted to White's laughter the first time he had heard it. He wanted to be in White's company. "Must you go?" "Yes, but only for now. I will be here in the morning. I'll miss you." Mike felt as if he were saying goodbye to a long-lost relative. He actually didn't want White to go. The energy between them was addictive to him. Mike recognized that this was unusual. He verbalized it in only a few words and formed a question. White knew it was coming. White, what is it I am feeling? Are you able to explain it so that I can understand? No, White was honest and smiled at Mike. But I will tell you anyway. This magnificent angel was very willing to talk about everything, even if it was over Mike's head spiritually. He continued, I represent the source for all matter. I exist that I exist, and am the reason for the universe to exist. I live in the highest scientific paradoxes imaginable, but I am responsible for the emotions of a single human heart. I am the smallest part of physics and the largest part of the universe. I represent all light. I am the space between the nucleus of the atom and the electron haze. I am the most abundant force in the universe and the most powerful source of energy. I am from the most distant, yet most powerful force in the universe. I am the sands in the hourglass of time, yet I am the center where there is no time. I am the creative force that allows physics to respond to consciousness. Therefore, I am a miracle. I am love. Mike understood none of this, but he was awed by the message anyway. White had sanctity and holiness. Mike was standing before a part of God that was sacred and anointed. He was faced not with a teacher this time, but a personality, a celebrity, with a voice like none that Mike had ever heard. Mike had felt the same thing the first time he had met White. Thank you, White, Mike said gratefully. Thank you. White looked at Michael Thomas for a very long time before he spoke again. His silken voice slid into Mike's ears like the morning dew on a moist flower petal. You will not spend much time here, Michael Thomas. Tomorrow I will explain the 4 attributes of love. Then I have someone for you to meet. Mike could tell that there was something potent coming just by the way White looked at him. Mike felt the angel's love and compassion for him. White exited, leaving Mike wishing for more of everything. More of that wonderful voice, more information, more peace. That was it. White carried peace when he was around. Yet White was gone, and the peace remained. What a feeling. Mike had forgotten how hungry he was until he smelled food in the other room. He knew the routine and quickly placed his belongings in the closet, washed himself, and prepared for his evening meal and an early retirement. After dinner, Mike slept better than he had ever slept in his life. Whatever he had experienced in the other houses, this topped it. The sense of peace was so thick he could taste and smell it. The serenity was awesome, and the result was complete and ultimate rest. When the disgusting and vile entity with the red eyes came upon the White House on the path, IT did not stop to take refuge in a tree or wait behind a rock. Michael had already entered the cottage, and IT knew that all was safe, and IT could pass without notice. IT continued with a dark purpose that compelled IT forward. For about an hour, IT moved quickly up the road in the direction of the next house and found a place perfect for the ambush. IT scouted the land and thought of all the escape contingencies that Michael Thomas might try. Then, IT settled in and began the waiting process, practicing what IT was going to do. The deception was perfect, IT thought. Michael didn't stand a chance. His guard would be down. If you had been a traveler on that path in the dusk of that closing day where IT had set the trap, you would have seen a solitary man standing under a tree, repeating the same words over and over, as if practicing a speech. If you had come closer to this seemingly gentle soul, you would have observed the features of an honest farmer and heard the voice of a loving father, Michael Thomas's father. Michael woke early and prepared himself. His quarters were similar to that of the other houses, except that they were completely white. He had often considered the white-on-white look as feminine decor, but this experience changed his mind. In this place, all the whiteness conveyed a sense of peace, of serenity. Mike found some white clothes to wear, complete with white slippers if he had wanted them. He ate, and what a meal. Not only did it taste good, but the food looked wonderful. He was seated at a table with a white tablecloth and white china. There were white cups and glasses, and even white utensils. The color of the food contrasted dramatically with the whiteness and gave the appearance of a gallery painting. Mike ate slowly, taking in all the elegance in his new surroundings. All the white made him feel as if he were in a palace, as if he were among royalty. When he was finished eating, Mike took a deep breath. He absolutely knew that the grand, white angel was just on the other side of the door, waiting. What was going to happen here? If love was the greatest power of the universe, and Mike was increasing his vibration toward it, then what could be waiting that would tempt him to leave this path? Mike opened his door and stepped into the wispy hallway of the White House. He was right. The white angel was waiting for him, right where Mike had taken leave of him the evening before. "Good morning, Michael Thomas," said the cheerful entity. Mike immediately felt the grandness of the energy around White. "Good morning, White. Are you ready to move forward?" Yes. Mike loved the feeling here, but was a bit apprehensive. White led him into a room where he could sit. He was invited to seat himself, and did so. There were no teaching aids, screens, or charts here. Only a white room with a chair in which Mike was now seated. The angel took a place in front of him and began the information exchange. "Michael Thomas of Pure Intent. I am here to present to you the 4 attributes of love. When the pure love of God permeates your being, your very cells will vibrate with its integrity. You will see things differently. You will treat others differently. You will have powerful discernment. It is the essence of all creation. But oddly enough, your language has only one word for this astounding property." The angel smiled. "I wish to show you how it works. Please come with me." Mike was surprised by what followed. He thought he had been through a great deal in the first 6 houses and had seen everything, but suddenly the angel was taking him on a journey. Seated, he was being whisked into an interdimensional reality. He and White seemed real, but everything else became dreamlike. He had the feeling of motion, but was not dizzy in any way. The white, indistinct room became a maze of colors and sounds, changing greatly before his eyes. Still in his chair, Mike was being taken somewhere else, and although surprised, he was not afraid. It was all so wondrous. After some time, he and White finally arrived at whatever destination the angel had in mind. The indistinctness of the dimensional shift started to fade, and Mike found himself and White in a hospital setting. This surprised Mike. He thought White was taking him to some heavenly place to look at divine love. Instead, he was observing an average hospital room where a patient was lying in a bed. Multiple tubes were attached to the individual, and Mike recognized the area as one hospital's called intensive care. It was so real. He could hear everything as it was happening, and he could smell the antiseptic the hospital used on the floors and walls. After being on a sacred path in a spiritual land for so long, the sounds and smells assaulted Mike's nostrils and made him wince. It was so different, yet still familiar. The 2 travelers took up a place where they could observe everything that happened in the room. They seemed to float in a stationary way in one corner. There was stillness, and Mike was quiet. Only the beeping, hissing, and clicking sounds of the medical apparatus were apparent. Mike looked around. The man in the bed was obviously of advanced years. He looked ashen, very old, and very sick. His eyes were closed. "What's wrong with him?" Mike quietly spoke to White, as if the patient might hear him. "He's dying," replied the white one. Mike started to ask another question when a woman in her early 40s entered the room alone. She stood there for some moments just inside the room, looking at the man in the bed. Mike realized that somehow she was special. His intuition remained alert, even within this seeming vision. "Who is she?" Mike inquired. "She's the daughter of the dying man," stated White. "The story you are seeing is really about her." Mike took it all in as White continued to speak. "Her name is Mary, and she has every reason to despise the man in the bed. Why should she hate her father?" "Because he abused her greatly when she was just a child," replied White. "It scarred her emotionally and physically. It ruined her life." White paused, and they both watched Mary approach the bed. The angel continued. "Her mother never knew about it, since Mary was too frightened to tell her. It affected their relationship as mother and daughter, and Mary moved out of her home early to get away from her lusting father. Her mother thought that Mary didn't want her, and they never were able to enjoy any adult friendship. Mary never told her anything, and she died thinking that Mary didn't love her. That's terrible." Mike was genuinely distressed. He could feel the unfairness of the situation and felt very sorry for Mary. The angel looked at Mike quizzically. "They are family, Michael. Certainly you didn't already forget your lessons in the Red House." Mike felt ashamed. No, he hadn't forgotten. But this was the first time he had tried to relate what he learned about his own spiritual family to another human. He realized that White was alluding to the fact that the father and daughter had a karmic contract together, just like those he had with his own spiritual family. It gets worse. White was still speaking. Would she try to have a normal relationship and find a husband? The early experiences with her father always somehow spoiled it for her. She never was able to successfully marry and have children of her own. Mike sighed and then spoke. That's quite an agreement they had. He was overwhelmed by the heaviness of what Mary must have gone through. The angel looked at Mike in an admiring way. He didn't have to say anything. It was White's way of giving Mike a compliment from what he had learned so far along the path. Do you understand, Michael Thomas, that what happened with Mary and her father was a contract of incredible love? I do, White, but as a human, I still find it a very hard concept to understand and accept. That's your duality working, Michael, stated White. You may never completely accept some of these things while you are in human form, and that is totally appropriate. Mike continued to look upon the situation in the hospital room. Mary was quietly staring at her father, perhaps waiting for him to awaken. She placed some of her things on the bedside table. She must hate him very much, Mike said sadly and softly to White. No, Mike, she loves him greatly. Mike was shocked by this statement. After all he did? Mike questioned. White turned and faced him. Mary has something in common with you, Michael Thomas, and something not in common. The angel stopped and looked hard at Mike for his reaction. Mike was listening. Unlike you, she is on Earth now. But like you, she has a full realization of the information you have received in the first 6 houses. Mike was stunned. He had believed that his spiritual training was something a human only received by going through the journey he was now on. He didn't know what to say. How could this be? The angel saw Mike's anguish and confusion and continued. Mary made her vibrational shifts on her own, Michael, and it took almost 9 years of her life. You have done yours in only a few weeks. You are indeed special. The information you have gleaned in the first 5 houses, plus the information found in the last 2, however, has been on Earth for eons. For a human to obtain it, he just has to realize his duality and give intent to find the truth of his existence. There has been much written about the way things work, and there are many human teachers who can help attain understanding. Mike was very quiet. This was very new information, and he had to take it in slowly and understand what it meant. He was beginning to feel uneasy. Had he made a mistake in the original vision, asking White to allow him to leave Earth and go home? Now he realized everything he was learning would also have been available had he stayed. White, why did it take her 9 years? She went at her own pace, Michael, and was honored for it. She did not have the benefit you did of angels who explained and tutored. She did not have the honor you had of meeting your family face to face. She doesn't know their angel names as you do. It took far longer for her since she is still in the vibration of the 3 and lives within an energy that is lower. Her duality is stronger, therefore, and her awareness and enlightenment took longer because of it. Mike saddened looked at Mary. Here she was, vibrating at a very high level, but she looked so small and frail. Don't let appearances fool you, Michael. Everything is not as it seems. The White Angel had again read Mike's energy. She is a warrior of the light. She has slain the giant and is powerful. Mike was really starting to feel uneasy now. What exactly did that mean? He started to ask about it when White spoke again. Michael Thomas of pure intent. We are here to watch this seemingly insignificant woman teach you the 4 attributes of love. Mike was very still. He knew intuitively that there was a great deal yet to learn. Just when he thought he was approaching home, things were becoming more complicated. The angel continued. Pay attention, for she carries with her the same power I do. She understands love, Michael, and part of me resides in her because of it. There's no greater power than this. She has also accepted the Golden One. Mike knew this was no time to ask any more questions. He watched while White continued the explanation of what was taking place. Michael Thomas, the first attribute of love is this. Love is quiet. Notice that she did not enter the room with a fanfare. Her abusive father is very ill. He cannot defend himself and is weak. It would have been a grand opportunity for revenge. She could have entered in a noisy fashion, announcing herself and making him fear her. He knows what he did, Michael, and he is ashamed and guilty. It has affected his life as well, and he has dealt with it poorly for years. He does not know what she knows spiritually. He does not have her new power. Watch her quietness, Michael Thomas. Mike and White watched in silence as Mary straightened her father's sheets. She seated herself beside the frail man and lay her head gently on his chest. Mike could feel what she was feeling. Somehow White was allowing for this. There was peace and serenity in her attitude and her mind. There was no thought whatsoever of retribution in her heart. She had forgiven her father so completely that her mind and heart had no feelings of victimization or anger. What a woman! Mike felt her compassion for this man who had fulfilled his contract so completely and had made such a compelling and serious mark on her life. It was a long time coming, but finally the father opened his eyes and discovered her presence. She stood up when he awakened. His eyes got very wide, and you could see his instant feelings of fear and surprise. Here she was. What was she doing here? He hadn't seen her in years and years. Was she going to yell at him, or worse? He was beginning to react. The instruments measuring his bodily diagnostics began to increase in their activity. The beeping, hissing, and clicking got faster. Watch, Michael. White spoke in his wonderful mellifluous voice. Here is the second attribute of pure love. Love has no agenda. She could ask anything she wants of her father right now, for he is weak and guilty. He is a wealthy man. She could demand abundance, legal reparation for what he did, or perhaps just demand that he recant his past performance aloud for her to hear. She could threaten him with harm or estate ruin, or both. Watch her, Michael. Mary placed her hand on her father's head and whispered in his ear. Immediately, the activity of the instruments quieted. He sighed, and Mike could see the beginning of tears in his eyes. What did she say, White? Mike didn't hear Mary's whisper. She said, "I love you, Father, and I forgive you completely," the angel replied. Mike was amazed at this drama playing out before his eyes. He wondered if he would have had the power and wisdom to do the same had he been in her situation. He admired Mary greatly. She didn't ask for anything. No, Michael. She is content to simply be. Again, Mike felt what Mary felt. Everything was finalized and gone regarding the karma between them. She was clear and was somehow giving him the same clearance and closure on a potent feature of their lives together. She had just disarmed something that had consumed him with grief and guilt for more than 35 years. You could see it in his face. Instead of demanding something in retribution, she had given him a gift. Now, the tears were large and flowing silently down his cheeks. Mary again sat and wrapped her arms around this precious man, who was her father, and again lay her head on his chest. There was no dialogue at all. It wasn't necessary. Michael Thomas, the third attribute of love is this. Love does not puff itself up. Now that she has established the fact that her maturity is glorious, indeed, she says nothing. He owes her a great deal right now due to her divine reconciliation, yet she remains quiet. She could have gloated in her power and stood tall with pride that she had been able to forgive him, yet she remains quiet. She has every right to stand up and beat her chest about the 9 years that it took to get to this place, yet she remains quiet. Mike was in awe of this woman. Indeed, she was a warrior of the light and understood things that Mike was just learning. Imagine such a thing. She was still on Earth with all this knowledge. What a peaceful and rich life she must have. Mike was introspective, but he was absolutely enthralled by the scene unfolding before him. There was nothing the father could say. All had been forgiven, and a wonderful peace and release were being felt by his very fiber. Mary hadn't done anything spiritual for her father. In fact, she had only improved herself, yet it was affecting him. Here is something else to look at clearly. Mike knew that what he was seeing had great significance. The father took a long look at his wonderful daughter and gently closed his eyes. The smile on his face was pure peace. She had given him the gift of a lifetime, just in time. The instruments plugged into the man began to howl different tones and volumes. The hissing stopped, and Mike knew that the father had just passed on. Attendants rushed in, but there was nothing to be done. After much activity and some final preparations, they covered his head and left him alone with Mary. White spoke again. Michael Thomas, the fourth attribute of pure love is this. Love has thuisdom used the other three perfectly. She timed everything appropriately and arrived correctly. She used her intuitive map, Michael Thomas, to know exactly when to come. Now watch what she does. Mike's attention turned from White back to what was taking place in the room. Mary was not sobbing uncontrollably at the loss of her father. She was not filled with grief, even though her love for this man was great. She had asked the attendants to allow her to remain. Mike watched as Mary placed her hand on the chest of the covered figure that had been her father, the seed of her existence. She lifted up her head and faced White and Mike. She seemed to speak right to them. It was Mary's strong voice that they both now heard for the first time. Let the earth remember this man, whom I love dearly. Mary's voice had authority as she continued. He came and discharged his agreement perfectly. I accept his gift. Celebrate his return home. Mary quietly lowered her eyes, gathered her things, and left the room. Michael's mouth was agape at what he had just seen. He felt the emotion of the moment and was overwhelmed by it. He had just watched the completion and closure of a lifelong contract, and what a finish. It was the wisdom of love that allowed Mary to celebrate his death and not mourn it, said a very wise White. White looked at Michael Thomas and immediately asked for his reaction. What do you feel, Michael Thomas of pure intent? White was not impatient and waited for Mike to recover some composure. I feel, Mike had to clear his throat. I feel that I have been taught as much in these few moments by this small woman as I have by all the angels in my journey so far. Mike realized what he was saying, and he instantly felt sheepish. Not that I don't appreciate. White held up his indistinct hand and stopped Mike from continuing. Your answer was perfect, Michael Thomas. Perfect. It is the human who has been able to make the difference. That is as it should be, and as it will be also in the next test. Instantly the scene blurred, and again Mike had the feeling of motion as he was transported. Before long they were back in the white room of the White House where they had started. Mike was very quiet. Do you have any questions, Michael Thomas? White inquired. Mike thought about what he really wanted. He knew that he was not as powerful as Mary. He knew that although he had learned a great deal and had understood much of the workings of things, he still did not have Mary's quiet power. He had tools, a magic map, and much knowledge. He had a high vibration and had experienced much, but he did not have the love that Mary had. He asked the magic question, can I have this powerful love, White? Is it your intent that it be so, Michael Thomas? Yes, it is. Michael Thomas of pure intent, do you love God? Mike straightened, thinking that this must be the reason all the angels had asked this question for this very moment, so that he could stand here and answer. Yes, I do, White. Michael was formal. Then let your pure intent create the power. Mike didn't remember what happened next. He lost consciousness as a human. He had dreams. He was somehow carried somewhere. There was a ceremony. There was a celebration. Something was given to him, a gift that he would carry in his cellular biological structure. There were his parents again. It was all so indistinct, all so wonderful. When he awoke, Mike found himself on his white bed in his white quarters. It was evening, and he was exhausted. He felt that he had been through some kind of gymnastic ceremonial ordeal. His mind was bleary, and he couldn't concentrate. What had happened? He would sort all out later. Now he had to sleep. Mike crawled under the covers and instantly slept. As before, he slept very well. When he awoke the next morning, Mike knew that again a shift had taken place within his very biology. He sat on the edge of his bed for a very long time, thinking about it all. He felt rested and peaceful. He felt renewed. Although he couldn't assign a particular feeling to it, he also felt somehow wiser within the scope of his being. Mike knew so much, and that's where the trouble was brewing. He couldn't get the picture of Mary and her father out of his mind. Mary was on Earth, yet she was such a wonderful spiritual being. She had accomplished great changes in her vibration and was powerful in her life. She had stayed. She hadn't asked to go home. She had endured life on Earth and had gone the whole route. Mike had bailed. Where was the integrity in this? Mike was just beginning to see where his new wisdom was actually creating a kind of introspection and integrity check of the kind he had never known before. Oh, Mike was honest, perhaps one of the most honest men around. All that farm living and being trained by wonderfully honest parents had paid off, but it never gave him feelings like this. Earth honesty wasn't the same as spiritual honesty. Spiritual honesty seemed to include the wisdom of several more dimensions before the integrity check was complete. Mike was beginning to understand what red and white might have meant regarding his choice to continue. With his newfound wisdom, his thinking had begun to change. Was all that he was doing correct? Was there a greater spiritual quest for Mike than what he had asked for? Mike continued to contemplate it all as he arose, dressed, and ate his morning meal. He was going to ask White some very pointed questions when he saw him. White could be his counselor in these things, and he knew that White would help him. White was waiting, as usual, on the other side of the door. Mike stepped into his presence, but said nothing. White stood there while Mike gaped at his new surroundings. All the indistinctness of the walls and floors and hallways was now crystal clear. He saw intricacies of design he was never aware of before. It was beautiful, but that wasn't all. The feeling of stepping into the angels' light was overwhelming. He shared something with this grand white entity that spoke somehow of partnership. Mike felt he was somehow a part of what White was. Mike loved White. He felt his breath quicken in response to it all. "It is your new sight, Michael Thomas." The angel spoke without Mike having to ask. "It is the beginning of a dimensional shift as well as a biological one. It is the same as Mary's, and it is yours because you have intended it with the purity we have seldom seen. I have to ask you some important questions, White." Mike had tried to be very quiet and respectful in his phrasing of this statement, but he was shocked by how his own voice sounded. It was larger than it should have been, or was it louder? No, it was different in an odd way, and Mike was uncomfortable with the change. It was almost a violation of his person. He felt anxious. "Michael, be still for a moment," the angel said in a comforting and compassionate voice. "What is it that you hear when my voice speaks to you? There is a complement of love and peace that has affected you from the beginning of our partnership. You even asked about it, remember? Your intent to move forward may seemingly rob you of precious personal things. This is a staple of your journey. Remember when Blue told you this? He told you that your old vibration was comfortable, and the new one would take some getting used to. Outside the House of Orange, you also learned of this when your precious belongings were discarded. You lamented and mourned their loss, but it was necessary for you to move forward. After a while, you did not think of them again. Yesterday, you gave intent for the largest personal change so far, and in response to your request, you have changed greatly. It gets more personal as you go along, Michael. Your sight, your voice, and your very thoughts will take on more purpose. You are turning into a warrior of the light, just like Mary." Mike felt a rush of understanding and wisdom from White's words, but the information also heightened his need to ask White about his spiritual quest. As well as he could, he ignored the odd-sounding voice that was now his. "Thank you, White. I understand. I am grateful for the gift, and will get used to it as I did the other things. Please, White, we need to speak. I need counsel." White knew what was coming and spoke. "There's much I can tell you, Michael, and I will answer whatever I can. There's also an area that is reserved for your wisdom only. Your intent has given you the power of ultimate choice and wise discernment. These choices are anointed and filled with your own essence. They mold your future and create your reality. They affect others around you and must be, therefore, of your own making." Mike expected this. He knew from being in this place that the angels were not going to walk his path for him. He knew that the lessons were his own, and that what he did had to come from within his own mind. Still, he was going to try to extract some knowledge that might help him to better understand what was really going on and what he should do next. You are a fine teacher, White. His new voice was driving him crazy. He remembered the first time he had heard his own voice on a tape recorder as a boy. I sound like that? He had wondered. No way, this was similar. White quickly turned before Mike could ask anything more and moved down the corridor. Mike followed the large floating entity. It was like being given a tour of an entirely new house. Things were so different. The beauty was astounding and spectacular. It was like a wonderful gallery of architecture and sculpture all at the same time. Everywhere there were breathtaking things to see. He had missed all of this with his old vision, and it made him wonder what it was that he was currently missing and what he might see in even higher dimensions. The colors, Michael. White answered Mike without even turning around. Sir, Mike didn't understand the statement. He followed along. What you are missing are the colors. But this is the White House, Mike stated as they moved forward. The angel laughed a great laugh. It filled the corridors and made Mike smile. Only to your human eyes, Michael. The actual color of love is far beyond the vibration you perceive. It is not white as you see it. You see white because none of the other vibrations are available. It is actually devoid of color for you. In reality, the color shimmers with an overlay of all universal vibrations together. It is pure and is at the top of the spectrum. It is the color of an interdimensional light, so great that it has substance and thickness. It is a billion times as bright as your Earth sun. It is the color of truth. There's much you cannot see as a human. I love this place, exclaimed Mike. We shall see if that feeling remains, said White. Mike again reacted with curiosity to the angel's suggestion that he might change in some way. He had to ask more questions. They continued down the dazzling hallways until White led Mike into a room that had windows and one chair. Another journey? Mike inquired. Not exactly, stated White, but it will take you somewhere. White again took up a place before Mike and announced his readiness to continue with business. Michael Thomas of pure intent. What is it you wish to know? Mike had his questions all ready for White. White, from the depth of your wisdom, and in a way that I might be able to understand, can you tell me if my quest in this great land is appropriate spiritually? Mike needed to know from the source if what he was doing was correct. Yes, I can. White remained quiet for a moment, as though he were going to answer literally yes or no to the question. Then, he continued before Mike could press him further on the issue. I told you from the beginning that what you are doing is appropriate for your life. In addition, there's no way that we would all be in support of something that was not correct for you. But Mary, Mike blurted out in his new, uncontrollable voice. She had all the gifts and tools, but was still on Earth. Isn't that a better thing? Doesn't it represent a higher spiritual purpose? For her, replied a wise White. But I'm in training to serve myself, White. I'm going home, to where love is. I've asked for something selfish. How does it serve Earth? I'm on a path that seems to provide nothing but what I want. Seems? White interrupted. Yes, it seems that way. Mike was exasperated. He fell silent. Since when did you care about serving Earth, Michael? White was having fun. Mike was taken with the question. He didn't answer right away. I don't know. Mike was pensive. I guess it's all part of the new me. What did I tell you when we first met about the way things seem? White was testing Mike. That things are not always as they seem, said Mike. That had been the recurring theme of his journey, and both Blue and Violet had actually stated those very words. With the addition of White, 3 angels had said this. Very good, replied White. What else? Mike fell silent. He didn't remember. The angel continued. Your wish for home is not selfish, but natural, and it is not in conflict with the desire to honor your purpose for being human. White paused. Now that you have made it this far, I will tell you one other thing. The grand angel moved to one side, as though preparing for something. There is a new energy on your planet. It vibrates with potential change and a wonderful purpose. Your request for home is honored because of this new energy. Your journey, therefore, is one taken by few humans, since it has not been available until recently. You, Michael Thomas, are a forerunner of this process. That is why we celebrate you so with your success and wisdom. Mike was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Okay, so it's sanctioned. Mike was being logical, yet weighing the facts as he knew them. But for me, would it have been better to return to Earth? To do what Mary did? For you, White tilted his head. Are we being selfish? I didn't mean it that way. Mike realized that a logical argument wasn't going to work with the Master of Love. I mean, where should I really be? What should be my action that fulfills the greatest good for all? This is my real question. This statement caused White to swell up with great pride. He smiled broadly at Mike and spoke intently. When this question is asked, Michael Thomas, it shows that you truly are beginning to understand the way things work. Your wisdom is starting to show, Michael. Thank you, White, but what is the answer? Mike ignored the compliment and winced a bit as he pressed the angel for more. It was uncomfortable to be so aggressive with such an entity of gentleness. The greatest good? White began to move away. It's your own reality, Michael. And you, as a human vibrating with a new intensity, will create it for yourself. There isn't one entity in the universe that can do it for you. White had moved to the door. Mike understood that he had shifted into a discussion that would go no further. These were the questions that the angels would not, or could not, answer. He tried one more tactic. White, will I be able to discern what is the highest good for all? The next event will be the test of that. White opened the door and was about to leave. Mike wondered where the angel was going. White continued speaking. You don't have all the information yet, Michael. This is the house of love. There's still more for you to see here. White moved out into the corridor. And Michael, the angel said as he was closing the door, it gets harder now. White left and silently shut the door to the room. Mike heard the click of the latch, and all was still. Mike knew that something was coming, something potent. What else could there be? What could be shown to him that would cause an even greater disquietude in his soul about the appropriateness of his journey? Mike turned in his chair and faced the area where White had stood. He was patient. The fact wasn't lost on him that whatever was going to happen without White. Whatever it was, he was required to go through it alone, and obviously White wanted it that way. The entire room seemed to change slowly, and the light became different around him. The white of the walls dimmed, and a concentrated space about 15 feet in front of Mike's chair was turning into a glowing haze. Slowly, the haze turned into an indistinct figure of some kind. Mike was very attentive. He was about to meet someone. He remembered that White had mentioned earlier that this would be so. The figure continued to emerge. Like a stage being flooded with light, the area around the emanating silhouette grew gradually brighter so that Mike could watch the developing persona that was coming into view. Mike was actually becoming used to this magical way of presenting things, and he sat on the edge of his chair peering into the changing space before him. It was a female. The shape took form slowly as Mike watched. He took some long breaths as his apprehension mounted. His intuition was set on high. The very cells of his body vibrated with excitement, telling him that what was before him was extraordinary. His new gifts of discernment were shouting that what was coming was unique and powerful. The image finally became solid. His visitor was here. The woman before him took his breath away. There was far more here than simple loveliness. He had an instant feeling of family, of connection, and it agitated Mike's inner being. She was spectacular. What was it he was feeling? Why were the alarms of his heart going off? Her flowing red hair set off a perfect face of compassion and incredible beauty. She smiled at Mike, and his heart just about leaped out of his chest. Her green eyes sparkled like emeralds set in the perfect ivory of her skin. Mike swore that he again smelled violets. All kinds of things went through Mike's mind. Perhaps this was the goddess of love, like the sirens of old legends. Mike was having trouble with his breathing. until he realized that he was holding his breath. What was this about? He looked at her in amazement. What could make him swoon in this manner? What was his heart doing? His brain felt like mush, and he could only sigh with longing at the sight of this glorious creature. Mike had seen many angels along the way, but this one had to be the grandest. Perhaps this is what White meant when he had told him that there was one even grander. Mike could not speak. The heart connection of this woman to him was astounding. He felt as though he was at a reunion and was about to greet a long-lost love. The haze was now gone completely, and she stood in his dimension in all her grandeur. Mike was in a stupor. In all his experience, he had never felt himself vibrate in this fashion. He cannot concentrate on the words that he wanted to say. He didn't know what to ask. He knew her, or did he? How could her presence affect him like this? What was the feeling he had of remembrance? Then he realized that he did recognize her. It was one of the faces in the red house within the Charter family. She was one of those who had not come forward to meet him as the others had. It had been the image of the red-haired woman whose energy had captivated his interest right away. Why hadn't he met her then? What was it that Red had told him about the faces he didn't meet? They were unfulfilled contracts? What did that mean? The revelation was slowly unfolding in Mike's mind as the two of them continued looking at each other in a charged silence. If she is on the chart in the red house, Mike thought, then she is not an angel. She is part of his human karmic family. Mike was beginning to have a bad feeling about this encounter, although his soul continued to sing a song that was brand new to him. It was a song that spoke of joy, purpose, and love. What a feeling and what a dichotomy. Part of his brain was telling him that he was about to be in trouble, and another part was rejoicing. The rejoicing part was like the child who sees Disneyland for the first time and has been counting the days, enduring the agonizing wait for the grand payoff. The troubled part, however, was his heart. It felt like it was a ringer. Mike felt stupid. He again realized that he was not breathing properly. The figure before him was affecting his physiology. The very sight of her magnificence was causing a reaction in his body. Why were his hands sweating? She wasn't an angel, yet the woman before him was affecting every cell in his body. He didn't know if he had the physical power to speak. He felt teary-eyed and emotional, like seeing a long-lost friend who he thought had died. This was indeed an experience to remember. Luckily, she spoke first. "Mike, it's me." The familiarity and kindness of her voice practically knocked him over. Mike was glad he was seated, for his knees were weak, and his legs were vibrating like so much jelly. His entire body reacted to a voice that he absolutely knew. But who was she? Her gleaming eyes and expression pleaded for him to recognize her. He did, but not the way she wanted. Mike had to speak. His adrenaline was pumping like that of a schoolboy reacting to the beautiful girl across the room who finally had spoken to him. Her physical body was glorious, and her clothes were a perfect fit. He could just imagine what it would be like to hold her. Oh my God! Mike realized with some embarrassment and disgust that he was in the first stages of physical desire. What had Green said about that? That intimate physical relationships within pure love represented the catalyst for enlightenment? Mike's humanness made his thoughts somehow seem out of place here, but it was happening, and these feelings seemed to be appropriate and spiritually perfect. Suddenly, he could hear Green laughing. He ignored the sound and mustered up his courage. He spoke in a shaky voice. "Your outfit is nice." Good God, what had he said? What kind of ignorant, unimportant, inappropriate, inane, insipid thing had he done? This gorgeous creature comes into a space in the house of love. He is filled with awe, and that's the only thing he has to say. Mike was mortified at his stupidity. She smiled. He melted. "Thank you, Michael." She winked. "I am Anolee, your love contract, Mike." Somehow Mike had known that. His heart was pounding at the sound of her voice. He wiped his wet hands on his pants, then realized she had seen him do it. She stepped forward and came closer. The light she was bathed in followed her. Mike felt himself try to disappear into the chair as he forced himself backward in reaction. The sound of the cushion wheezed in response. He wanted to stand, but knew he would probably fall over, something that he did not dare risk her seeing. He had been foolish enough already. She was amused at his shyness, but did not comment on it. He felt overwhelmed by her presence. When she had come forward, he had watched her walk, and he recognized emotion. Indeed, there was part of him that knew her intimately. Her new proximity to him only heightened his awareness of who she was. She continued, "Had you stayed on Earth, Mike, there was the energy potential for our meeting. We planned it together, remember?" Mike didn't, and he didn't want to hear this. She saw the beginning of his pained expression and his sinking heart. "It's okay," she said. "I'm here to tell you that what you are doing is honored. The family is proud, and we are all celebrating, especially me." Mike couldn't get past the obvious. It didn't matter that it was okay. He didn't care that the family was celebrating. All he wanted was her. All his life, he had looked for true love. All his life, he had searched for this very thing. He had known that perfect love was possible, that he could enter into a partnership that was ordained and correct before God. He had prayed for it as a boy, observing how much in love his parents had been and how they had treated each other. He had expected it as a man, and that was why he had been so depressed after his relationship had fallen apart. This had been the crux of his search for completion back on Earth. It had been his contract. Now, it was manifesting itself before him, and he was allowed to greet it and learn that it had been there all along. The realization hit him like a sledgehammer in the heart. He had left too soon. Then he was struck by another thought and was compelled to ask, "Anolee, did we have a contract for children?" "There were to be 3, she replied. Mike was emotionally devastated by this answer. He could not speak. He let her continue to tell him the spiritual names of the children, but he agonized as he heard every word. Even though she was there to honor him in love, he felt tortured. His heart was being torn apart piece by piece with every word, as he realized what he had missed. The unborn children, the experiences. What had he done? Mike began to lose control, his emotions welling up. He wanted to hold her and tell her how sorry he was that he had not stayed. That's not why she was there, but that's what he wanted to do anyway. Tears began to stream down his cheeks, and he began to shake. She had finished her story and had given him the information she had come to give. She stood before Michael Thomas in silence. The potential energy between them was so thick you could cut it. Before him stood a splendid female entity who was beautiful beyond belief, and he could only sit in a chair and sob. It was pathetic. All Mike's senses were filled with the essence of failure. There was electricity in the air that crackled with the energy of spiritual purpose and love, though seemingly unfulfilled and lost forever. The smell of irony was pungent. The only rose in his life was never to be admired and loved for its beauty. Its fragrance would go unappreciated, and the precious rose would wilt by itself, never to be held or adored for its perfect beauty and natural elegance. The contract between them had been powerful, and this realization was breaking the spirit and heart of Michael Thomas as he sat in the white chair in the House of Love. Her reality began to fade, and he reacted instantly. He felt himself shouting, "No, please don't go. Please." Mike felt he would never see her again. He just wanted a few more moments. The words she spoke in farewell sounded like more angelic gibberish. "Michael, things are not necessarily what they seem." The resplendent and magnificent woman who represented the potential love of Michael Thomas's life faded before his eyes, speaking seemingly trite words that he had heard before. With her fading away went the hopes of a human lifetime. He had watched and listened to his dreams of joy being dashed on the rocks of so-called spiritual purpose. Mike was petrified with grief. He couldn't move. Like a statue, he stared straight ahead for hours in the faint hope that this precious entity would return to the very spot she had occupied, a spot made sacred by her very presence. He pleaded with God to allow just a few more moments with his lost partner. The light in the room grew dim and changed color with the close of the day. Finally, it turned into a blackness that echoed the moonless night. Outside and reflected the hopelessness of Mike's heart inside. He sat in the dark silence of one who has been firmly and decisively defeated. There was no joy in his heart. The peace of his spiritual journey had been replaced by the agony of hurt and the sick, dark, tormenting feeling of loss. his energy sapped by the intensity of an injured heart and a revelation of profundity. Mike eventually fell into a deep slumber. Still he did not move, as his dreams replayed the anguish of the potent and tragic meeting over and over. Mike's heart was broken. The new day dawned and filled the room with light. Mike found himself in the chair where he had been all night. He felt as if he had run a marathon, and his joints ached, not from activity, but from being in the same position for so many hours. He needed to eat, but did not feel hungry. Still, Mike forced himself slowly out of his seat and made his way to his quarters. As usual, the food was prepared, and he fed himself automatically without appreciating the fine beauty around him or the incredible taste of the meal. When finished, he went into the sleeping area where the bed was still freshly made, not having been slept in. He opened the closet. There where he had left them were the gifts from the angels, given to him with love while visiting and learning in their houses. A feeling of sad wisdom spread over Michael Thomas. He remembered his question to White. Will I be able to discern the action for the highest good of all? Now he understood the test. The very essence of his existence cried out to return to Earth right now. All he had to do was close the closet, proceed out of the house, and turn left instead of right on the path. He knew it. That would indicate his intent to stop this journey and go back. White had told him that there would be no judgment in it, no guilt, and, of course, no enlightenment. Mike absolutely knew what the right thing was. Even Anolee had told him that they were all proud of him, and he realized that her heart probably hurt as well. Yet, she had encouraged him to go on. He knew what the greatest good for all was. To turn left would be to serve only himself and his human desires for love. White told him that his discernment of truth would be keen, and so it was. He felt no doubt as to the correct path, only the incredible pull not to take it. His heart cried out for him to acquiesce to the situation and go back. Nothing would be harmed, and he could continue with his life and find Anolee. Life on Earth would be good then. He picked up his map and held it close to him, closing his eyes and replaying his time in the blue house. He slowly put on his armor and felt the power it bestowed on him. He blessed it and thanked God for the precious symbol it represented. He took up the shield and held it with both hands against his chest, savoring what it meant to him. Then he placed it in its carry position, hooked onto his back, so it would be instantly available if needed. Like a warrior preparing for battle, he grasped his sword and brandished it with a flourish. He heard the whistling of the wind as the blade sliced the air. He remembered the ceremony with Orange and what the sword represented. Then he blessed the sword also, and deftly slid it into the scabbard, sheathed but ready. Mike stood tall in his handsome traveling clothes, and then purposefully left the room. White was there when Mike came out of the room. He saw the armor, shield, and sword and instantly knew what Mike's intent was. White smiled and gave Mike a bow, with his hands in position of prayer, an honor that was completely lost on Mike. Then he spoke. Michael Thomas of pure intent, how do you feel? This is difficult, White. You were right. I didn't know how hard it would be. It is the most difficult thing I have ever had to do. I still don't feel good about it, but I know what is appropriate and correct. Please, I wish to leave this place. It does not have fond memories. As it shall be. White turned and led Mike toward the entrance. The angel spoke to Mike over his shoulder as he led the way. It's not over, my human friend. White was now floating down the grand hallway that led to the front door. I know, Mike didn't know any details, but his intuition was telling him that there was still much to see and do within his journey, even though he had but one house to visit. His intuition was again correct. White stood just inside the door while Mike put on his shoes. In retrospect, Mike hadn't liked the White House very much. White had been correct in his prediction about what Mike might feel, and Mike was glad to be leaving this place. White knew it, but he did not judge Mike's feelings. Instead, White was actually in awe of this human. The others had been right. Mike was different. He would make it if he could get through the final portion of his journey. His discernment was great, and his resolve was even greater. Mike had finished with his shoes and took a few steps into the front yard. He stopped and faced the door. White spoke from within his position, just inside the doorway. since he could not venture outside. Michael Thomas of pure intent. There's no greater love than this, that a man would sacrifice his heart for the benefit of the whole. White smiled at Mike and slowly shut the door to the house. His last words were barely audible as the door swung shut. Not all is as it seems. You will see. You will see. You are dearly loved. Mike slowly and wearily sauntered down the walkway of the White House and approached the path. This had not been his favorite house, and he was beginning to tire of that particular phrase uttered so often. It now felt as though everyone had said it several times. He felt that this white place had extracted much from him, while the reality was that he had extracted much from it. He stood for a long time at the white gate to the house, looking left and then right. Finally, he opened the gate and took his place in the middle of the path itself and stayed very still. He faced left and closed his eyes, being careful not to take a step. He held a small ceremony of his own and started it by silently asking that the angels he had met be present to hear his pronouncement. Then he spoke aloud. There is no sacrifice here, for I shall meet you face to face, Anolee, and I shall know my unborn children, all in time, when I reach the door to home. Mike was taking to heart the teachings of the angels about the temporary nature of earth and the absolute reality of spirit. His statement carried with it the promise of a different kind of love in a very different place, but a reunion nevertheless. He had resolutely hung his heart on the reality of a sacred meeting in the future, where he would again see the love of his life, his glorious partner. That is where he would spend time loving her, and she him. Mike sighed and did an about-face. With long, purposeful strides, Michael Thomas resumed his journey to the final house. His armor softly clanked around him as he walked in the sunshine. He was aware that he was leaving behind one of the greatest promises of happiness that he had ever known. He had turned his back on all of it, and although he was aching inside from the decision, he had the promise of the incredible love of God as his solace, as well as the absolute knowledge that he would indeed see Anolee again. He was pensive, resolute, and serious. Michael Thomas had learned a great deal about love. This house had taught him the most about himself and God, and it had been the one that had wrung his very soul until the drops of truth and discernment came weeping out for him to recognize and use. He didn't look behind him this time. There was no timidness in his deliberate stride. Although somewhat weary, Mike felt empowered and safe. This was now his land. He felt he owned it. He had paid for it. He deserved it. He would soon find out if this was so. For an hour up the road, another great test awaited Michael Thomas. IT would provide the battle for his very soul. Michael Thomas turned his back on the greatest earthly happiness to prove his discernment and continue his sacred journey home. Weary but empowered, he strides confidently toward the final challenge. Next, Michael approaches the 8th and final episode, the Golden House of Self-Worth. This house demands a final piece of the master's puzzle, total and absolute self-acceptance. But the enemy has one last, vicious trap. In episode 8, Michael faces the angel Gold, but the true battle is within. He must confront the voice of unworthiness on the final 3 steps before the door marked home. Will Michael's self-doubt, the last remaining vestige of the dark entity's power, make him turn away at the finish line? To witness the final moments before the door, subscribe to Neo Insight and prepare for the final confrontation with the self.